story of a 17-year-old TS55 Festool track saw or rail saw, and I bought this many moons ago, 17 years indeed, and it has been worked. I have really worked it. I've looked after it, mind it, but it's never been in for a service. Nothing's ever gone wrong. I've always had sharp blades and I've never asked too much of it. I think that's super important of all our power tools. So I was using this recently and I was cutting through 18mm OSB with a fairly good blade, and I was doing a series of rips at 45 degrees. So it asks a little bit more of the saw, especially through OSB, 18mm indeed. And I was using it and it was working quite happily, and it just stopped. The sort of stop where you think, oh, is the power gone off? But the lighting was still on, and indeed the dust extractor was working as well. If I turned it onto manual, it still kept, hoovering, if you like, sucking. So I decided to do the normal sort of stuff, check the fuse, no problem, check the lead. So I took the lead from the TS55 and plugged it into one of my other Festool tools, and the lead was absolutely fine. So now I know that it's not the lead, it's not basically anything else apart from the fact the saw's decided to stop. So I did a post on social media, and within a few minutes, people were saying, just change the brushes. Now, I'm not really the sort of person who likes electrical work at all. So, it's not my first sort of choice of things to do. But I have been out and ordered, or I've been and ordered some brushes. They're in here. I haven't opened this yet. It's an unbagging, there you go. So we'll undo this and we will get out the part, there we go. So I've got a pair of new brushes in here. So I suppose I better try and take out the old brushes. Here's what we'll do first though, to show you that it doesn't work, is plug it in. Okay, dust extraction is working. Put that onto auto. Pop these brushes out the way. We'll power up the TS55. Here we go, power it up. Nothing, okay? It's completely as dead as a dodo, okay? So that is not happening. So I'm going to take the plug out and put that to one side. Super important. The last thing I want to do is undo this machine and experience trouble. And then I'm going to remove this end, okay? Because the brushes are set just behind here, okay? So let's get that removed. It's a Torx T15. Now I think it's useful doing this on the box because I can drop those screws in that handy hand cutout on the handle. We'll take all the screws out and we'll have a little look inside. I'm also intrigued to look inside because I've never had this apart in the 17 years that I've been running it, to see how much dust and stuff goes in, because it's open vented, and so I'd imagine there's a little bit of dust in there as well. Okay, so we'll take all of these out. So I suppose it's quite useful if we can film this from start to finish, because it'll mean we'll see how long it takes and how successful it is for someone who, like me, who isn't that technically minded. So there's a fair amount of dust and debris inside, but actually not that bad. So now I can see the brushes. We have a positive on this side and a negative on this side, and they've just got these two slide connectors, which then we can access the brushes. It looks a little bit fiddly. The first thing I'm going to do is give it a little hoover out and clean it. So the new brushes, let's have a little look at the new brushes. Let's just see how they look before we take the old ones out, because I've never taken them out before. So I always think it's good to look at what you're working with. So it's basically, this is the brush part. There's obviously a spring which keeps it pressed against the motor. There you go, this one's actually quite stuck. So that might be a bit of a showstopper, that. It's actually not springing back, isn't that typical? So I already have got to look at why that's not doing that. And to see, it looks like it's well, this one's got might bend right round on it. Okay, so that's not a good start, is it? Because the actual brush is bent, so that's got to come round there. Okay, that's actually eased it now. So So what's happened was it's got a hook on this side. This hook had bent right round and caused some pressure against that brush. Now it's fine. So obviously that can trip you up straight away. It looks like they're exactly the same. They've got the same, there's not a left and there's not a right, they're isometric. So that's it, that's back to working order. So that's the sort of thing that can trip you up, that, isn't it? So anyway, so the next thing I've got to do is disconnect the power from either of the existing brushes here. So there's also two restraining screws which actually hold in the brushes. There's one. Pop that in there. And there's the other. So we'll release those, get those out of the way obviously, and then we can pop out the brushes. Tricky. There we go, that one's eased itself out, no problem. So this is a 17-year-old brush, and I can also see that both of those brushes that I've been sent have actually got a bit of damage to them, because, I mean, look at that. That is almost, it's down to a little pin, which, I mean, the fact that there's anything left on that is a miracle. That's unbelievable. Okay, so now we're going to get this one out as well. In fact, you don't need a lot of force on it. It's a matter of just easing it out. Let's try and ease that out like this. Okay, pliers. So removing the brushes is pretty straightforward. Once you've got a hold of it, it's just a matter of easing it out. And I can see that there's still quite a bit of dust and debris in there, so we'll give that a little vac. I'll stand up the old brushes there, and I'll stand up the new ones. And I mean, they have worn down so amazingly. Look at that, look at the length of that. If I just take some pictures of those. So the middle are the old ones, and of course here are the brand new ones. I mean, that's incredible to think this has had 17 years, 17 years, and that's it. I mean, they are literally non-existent, they are tiny. So it's just a matter of popping the new ones back in. There's the screw, there's the connection, and we just need to compress it all the way down there, avoid that cable here, and ease it back in. I think it's a lot easier getting them back in than getting them out, to be fair, because I can just use a small slotted screwdriver to hold it. Oh, that's beautiful. That clicks in so much nicer. I think that's because when you're taking them out, you've got the brush which is pushed against, but popping them in is a cinch, because as long as your cables aren't in the way, it's just a matter of getting it compressed together and clicked home. Let me just pop that there, pull the brush back right to inside, and then we can click him down and pop him in. There we go. And then all we got to do is fix him up. Pop the little restraining screws in. These are the silver ones, these are the short silver ones. There's 2 of these and 4 of the others. We can pop them back in quickly. This will be so nice if it works. I'll be so pleased with myself, because, you know, I don't mind buying new tools, but it's, you know, it's like losing an old friend, isn't it? You know, why? If you haven't got to replace it, you can repair it. I mean, I was happy enough with 17 years of service, but if I can make this work, let's plug that back in there. Let's plug that back in there. All of the cables have got little tiny clips. They all locate in the right places. We'll pop all this out of the way. Check there's nothing going to snag it. We'll get the case. We'll pop the case back on. It should just slot on. You shouldn't have to force it. Then we'll pop those screws in. A little thing I was taught by my dad before he passed away, or even when I was a kid. If ever you put in a casing on or anything like that, whether it's mechanical, electrical, always tighten the screws up together. So you do a few turns of each one, get them started, make sure they're not threaded, or make sure one's not holding, you know, something else in the wrong place. And then basically carry on, you know, take them all towards where they need to be, and then tighten them all up in sequence instead of tightening one up. And he would even go to the extremes of sort of going opposites and then left, right, opposites. But he was very mechanically minded. My old dad could fix absolutely anything. So whenever I fix anything now, I always think of my dad and think to myself, he would have been happy with me, because he would go to jumble sales and car boot sales and buy carriage clocks. You know, these really old things that sit on people's mantelpieces for pennies, and they would never work, been dropped, broken. And he would set about taking them to bits. I mean, every single bit out and putting them all back together again. And sometimes cobbling two together if there was a bit wrong or missing. And used to make them work. It used to be incredible. So there you go. That was his generation, a generation of fixing and mending, as opposed to us is buy again. So that's it. That's all lovely and tight. Now, wouldn't it be nice if on camera, this is not going to be edited, we're going to take the lead, just check all the saws nice and safe, and there's nothing restricting the blade, because I'm going to spin it, I'm going to run it up hopefully. Now, you'd expect with new brushes that it's going to take a bit of time to break in. So now I'm going to turn the saw to auto and pull the trigger for the big reveal. Wow, I mean, that is the most satisfying thing I've done for a long time. Those brushes, I mean, that was £15 including postage, and the saw, I mean, that's apart from the blade, the brushes are really the only serviceable part that you need if you look after it. You don't drop it and crack it and break it.